Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We bring seniors 50 plus together.
Learn about and discuss issues that are important to Minnesotans. Hear from our elected officials and experts on public policy.
Meet political candidates, elect delegates to district and state conventions, and help elect Republicans to office at all levels.
We believe in and advocate for the principles of personal responsibility, economic prosperity, peace through strong national defense,
and limited, sensible government. Republican Seniors of Minnesota, thanks for joining us.
Mr. Zimmer? I just did the social media. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. I'm calling our meeting to order. Welcome, and a special welcome to those who are attending via our live stream video. I'm Carol Brumwell. I'm the chair of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. I'll be your MC for this meeting. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded by our volunteers. The section there closest to the beverages is off camera, so if you are given the microphone to speak, please come towards the center so we can see you as well as hear you. A few meeting courtesy reminders. These are intended to help you show respect for others as well as our speakers. Turn off or silence your cell phone. I have to turn mine off because somehow it still vibrates when a little message comes in. Take side conversations out of the room. Even though you may think you're being quiet at the back of the room, it does disturb the back tables. The east side has a door that can close, so if you need a side conversation, take it out there. Please whisper inside the room, again, because it's a large meeting room. You may think you're talking quietly, but it does seem to echo and carry. I don't know how the acoustics here work. They just do. Wait for the microphone, as I said. It's a large room, but even if you have a booming voice, which I think I have, it does not carry to the entire room. So wait for a microphone. We'll have people with 2 roaming microphones. Wait for the microphone to come to you. Let's do a sound check. If at any time you can't hear things, please raise your hand. Our past chair, Mike Lehmann, is here working our soundboard. So back of the room, sound check okay, John? Okay. Thank you very much. Please join me in a brief opening prayer. Gracious God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather for a meeting. Please bless our speakers this day. Help them to communicate clearly the knowledge they have to share. We pray for those in government office, especially our Minnesota legislators now in session. Grace them with your guidance and give them courage to do what is right. We thank you for each and every one who is here today. Grant each of us the strength and determination to take action and make a difference. using fully the skills and the lifetime you have given us. Amen. We'd like to recognize our military veterans and first responders. Would those people please stand up? And we'll have you remain standing as the rest of us stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. We'll have time at the very end for some brief 30-second announcements. I know several of you have spoken with me and have a brief announcement. We'll have time at the end, just before our door prize drawing for those. You're welcome to stay in the room until noon. We have the room until noon. We should wrap up around 11:30, so we have another half hour of time for you to spend socializing with each other. We also have the opportunity to have lunch together today. The venue will have a lunch available from noon to 1 up in the fireside room. So it's out these east doors and up the stairs. They had a posted menu. It looks like it's a choice of super salad, a choice of sandwich, and beverage. And they're charging $15 for that. So if you want to take advantage of that, continue the conversations, feel free to do so. As we mentioned last month, when you get your Minnesota tax form ready, I've already filed mine. Please remember to check the Republican political donation box. That is what gets our local candidates a portion of the subsidy. Right now, Democrats are out checking us 2-to-1. They get twice as many dollars as Republicans do. So there's a fixed amount that everybody gets, and then there's the above amount that is based on that checkbox. Let's start taking advantage of that. Your help is still requested every month over at the Republican MNGOP offices. That's off of 494 and 100. We meet on the third Thursday mornings. The next opportunity is April 18th from 9:30 to 11:30. We're doing real easy work. It's stuffing envelopes so that the political campaign contribution receipts can get mailed out to donors. Quick recheck and recount. Last time I asked how many of you made it to the February 27th caucuses, and we had a count. I'm not sure it was accurate, so I'm going to ask again. And Chuck, are you available? Chuck and Al? He's not listening. We're doing a recount of who got to their caucus on February 27th. It was snowy, it was nasty weather, but I think a lot of us did. So would standing be easier to count? Okay, if you would stand, please, if you made it to the caucus. You got 36 total on your side? Okay. We'll better stick with our 60 count from last time. Thank you very much, folks. All right. As announced on March 25th call notice, we will now have our annual convention of the Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For those live streaming, I expect this to take us about 15 minutes. You can listen in. It's always interesting. Reminder that only paid up 2024 members who are present are eligible to vote. You should have, if you are eligible to vote, you have a colored ticket behind your name badge, and I think Chuck explained that as you checked in. We'll talk first about the changes to the Constitution. They are on markup copies on your table, and Mike, would you put that up, please? You got it up. Good job. A warm thank you to Member Jerry Ewing, who recommended that we add a vacancies clause to our Constitution. This will clarify if someone's not able to continue their term, what happens. He also suggested that we allow the board to approve typos, which I think is a wise thing rather than having to leave it with mistakes in it for a year until we can get back to you. Additional changes we put in there, we clarified that redistricting really only applies to the congressional district delegates. Everything else is elected at a statewide basis. We are asking that there be a timing requirement that candidates who want to be a delegate, alternate, or a board member get their name to the nomination committee a week before the day that we're going to vote on them. And we're updating the role description of one communications chair so it doesn't include marketing anymore. On the display are the excerpts that show the changes. May I have a motion to approve those, and then we can have discussion if necessary. Motion to approve the changes? So moved, thank you. Second, thank you. Is there discussion? Discussion for, against, or point of information?
Point of information.
Yes.
The stuff that's in green, is that being added in or taken out?
Yes. The barred through is what's being taken out. The non-barred through that's in gray is what's being added in.
Underlined in gray, it's new.
Can you get back to that? Wait, were there other questions? Was there a question about a particular section? Dale?
No,
Okay. Any other for or against or point of information? Yes, sir. Can we get a microphone back to him, please? Lynn, do you have a microphone? He is standing. And he's not a short person.
Just a comment or question regarding actually the last item. I have no problem with the grammar or spelling, but I'm questioning the clarity. That's very subjective, and I was wondering if
I don't have an
that should be in
example.
there.
Yeah, I don't have an example of that. Although the marketing and communications, where marketing actually is being done by another person, I would might say that is clarity. If someone is saying, "Gee, I don't understand that tangled wording," that might be clarity. It'd take the board members all agreeing that it is a clarity that needs to be improved for that to come.
Okay, thank you.
Any other point of information for or against items? Seeing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving these changes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you, the changes are approved. I'll now ask Mike Lehmann, our immediate past chair, who is the chair of the nominating committee, to present our candidates.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. And we had 3 people on the committee. We had John Butz, we had Al Muroff, and we had Chuck Johnson. And they, along with myself, selected these candidates to be for the Republican convention and then the 3 CD conventions. But why don't we go to the Republican convention first, because everyone that can vote should vote for these. We have 2 delegates and 2 alternates that could be elected. As you see, we only have 3 up there. So therefore, if you would like, for this purposes, it's actually for all of them, because we only have 2 in each category. We do not need to do a ballot vote. That would take time. Instead, we can just do a voice vote. But in order to do that, I need someone to make a motion that we set aside the balloting and we go to a voice vote due to restricted candidates. We only have 2 candidates for each, or 3 in the first case. Yes.
All right. I understand that for the Republican convention, because you're going to be short one alternate. But it looks to me, it says that Scott and Jay both want to be delegates, and Tanya wants to be an alternate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so no problem there. You could still fill one alternate. But on the next 2 choices, it's 1 delegate, 1 alternate. Who wants to be both? Sorry.
Don't have that on.
Is that working?
No.
No, it ain't working.
I don't have it on. I don't have it on, sorry.
Yeah. All right. So, for the CD2 and CD3 convention, there is 2 names. Do they both want to be delegates? Or is one already chosen to be a delegate and the other one the alternate? How are we going to select that for those 2?
Very good, very good point.
There's no CD4. How come?
We don't have enough members to be a CD4. There are not enough members. You have to have 10 members of the Republican seniors in order to vote. We do not have 10 members from CD4 to vote for a CD4, so therefore we cannot have a CD4. Okay, but anyways, in regards to that, you are correct. But let's say for CD2 we have 20 people here. If everyone votes, everyone, Elaine and Ted, will both get the same number of votes. Follow me? Because you have to vote for 2 each time. So if everybody votes for 2 each time, everyone gets the same number of votes. So what we proposed is with Elaine and Ted, we asked them, 1, who would like to be the alternate or the delegate, and if we can't decide, we flip a coin.
If they're okay with that and the rest of us, I just...
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay?
I move that we do so.
Okay, second to that?
Second.
Okay, very good, thank you. Then we can proceed with just the voice vote. What I would recommend then is, well, everyone who can vote, who's got a yellow, blue, or green tag or something like that. Anyways, whoever has a vote behind their names, we can vote for the Republican convention. It would be Scott Graham, Jay Kaycock, and Tanya Tom. Now, are they here, Scott Graham? Do you want to stand up? Just stand up a minute. Is Jay here? Jay, stand up. And Tanya? Tanya's here too. Okay, all 3 of them are here. And, you know, we would love to have you come up and talk, but to save time, because you'll all be elected, we just want to acknowledge you and see who you are. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I will put it to the voters at this point. Scott Graham, Jay Kaycock, and Tanya Tom, if you would like to elect them, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, very good. 3 of you are elected. And Al, I think you're responsible for letting the GOP know that they're coming. Okay, okay. Right. Okay, now we'll move on to CD2. And CD2, we only have Elaine Loesch and Ted Palera running. Is Elaine here today? Where is she? Oh, she's way at the back. Okay, you're helping at the table. Is Ted Palera here today? Ted is not here. Okay, but okay, yeah, he can still run. He doesn't have to be here, but yes. Now, the people that are in CD2, why don't you just stand? If you're in CD2, stand. You have a blue tag behind your. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, great. And all I'm going to say is the same thing, only instead of yay, we're just going to raise our hand up. Okay? So all those in favor of Elaine and Ted, raise your hand. Okay, it looks unanimous, everyone. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. You can have a seat. Okay, then CD3, we have Chuck Brusvin. Now, I don't think Chuck is here today, is he? Because I think he said he couldn't be here today, but he wanted to run. Okay, and then we have Jay Kaycock, who again is here. We know that because he's running also for Republican convention. Okay, CD3, why don't we all stand? CD3, I'm part of CD3. I think that's a few more people here. Okay, all those in favor of having Chuck Brusvin and Jay Kaycock be our delegate and alternate, just raise your hand up. I don't see anyone opposed, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much. And this is where it comes down, CD5, we have enough in CD5 to elect a CD5 delegate. Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm Mike Hill. I'm CD5. I don't see you have an alternate. I would like to volunteer to be the alternate for CD5, not the delegate, the alternate, since I don't see another name up there.
Okay. Mike Hand?
Held, H-E-L-D.
Oh, LD, sorry. Mike Held. Now, we can do that today, but after today, we can't. But anyways, Mike Held. Okay. CD5 people, would you please stand? CD5. We got one. Oh, I'm sorry. Bob Coles is the one that's running for delegate. And Bob is up here at the front, and he's our guy that comes every time, so he's a very loyal member. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here today, but we do have 10 members. Oh, 8, 9, sorry. We do have 10 members, and so the ones that are voting here and standing today can still vote for Bob Coles and Mike Held. Mike Held is the new one. Okay, so all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Either one, right or left, doesn't matter to me. Okay, very good, thank you. So we're elected now Bob Coles and Mike Held. Okay, I don't know if you want to continue with the meeting or if you want to end it now. It's up to you.
Thank you very much. This is the end of our Republican Seniors of Minnesota Convention for 2024. Thank you all for your patience, and hope that you enjoyed our convention. Much shorter than a typical one. And now I'm pleased to welcome our featured speaker. David Zimmer will be speaking with us about disparities in the criminal justice system. David Zimmer is a policy fellow at Center of the American Experiment, where he writes about criminal justice and public safety. Mr. Zimmer served 33 years in local law enforcement with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, retiring as a captain. During his law enforcement career, Mr. Zimmer served as a deputy and a supervisor in areas including the jail, courts, patrol, water patrol, investigations, and tactical command. Mr. Zimmer was recognized as a collaborative law enforcement leader who earned the respect of stakeholders throughout the criminal justice system. He advocates for public policy that will ensure a consequential criminal justice system for all Minnesotans. David Zimmer.
Thank you, Carol. And thank you all for the invite, and especially Don Patton, who reached out to me 6 months ago or so and coordinated my appearance here today. So thank you. I have a couple of devices I have to work with today to make sure the presentation is quality, so if you can bear with me. I'll be speaking to you about my report that I wrote last year entitled Dispelling the Myth of Unwarranted Racial Disparities in Minnesota's Criminal Justice System. There are a number of copies in the back, and if you're interested, you can visit our website at americanexperiment.org. All of our reports, not just mine, but we have reports on healthcare, education, governance, energy, a wide variety of topics, but you can find all our reports there. So the report that I'm going to speak to you about today is an important one because it stands as one of the few projects which disputes the narrative that Minnesota's criminal justice system is systemically racist and more punitive towards black Minnesotans. I want to address something up front. The research and my report deal with race, and in 2024, that can be a sensitive issue. I want to assure you that I come to this work respectfully, and I hope you leave here today feeling the issue was discussed and presented in a respectful manner. All right. So I'm going to break this presentation into 4 parts. First, I'll discuss the rationale for the report and explain why I felt it was necessary and who the report helps. Second, I'll share the methodology used in completing the report and discuss some of the limitations of the report. Third, I'll review with you the data and the findings of the report. And then finally, I'll open it up for questions. So I would ask that my presentation's about 20-25 minutes, and I'd just ask if you save your questions to the end. To begin, let me give you some background about me. I know I was introduced, but before becoming a policy fellow with Center of the American Experiment, I did serve 33 years with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in a variety of roles and assignments. These assignments included 20 years as a detective and ended with running the Hennepin County Jail and our court security divisions during the high-profile trials involving the deaths of George Floyd and Dante Wright. I submit to you that my broad range of experiences in the criminal justice system, spanning the past 4 decades, establishes my credibility to evaluate the data and draw the conclusions presented in this report. So what was the rationale and why did I conduct the research and write this report? From my experience, Minnesota's criminal justice system is obsessed with race, and that obsession has resulted in misguided criminal justice system policy development that often fails to hold black offenders accountable, thereby subjecting the black community to disproportionately high levels of crime. The persistent refrain involving race in Minnesota's criminal justice system is that black Minnesotans are overrepresented throughout the system compared to their proportion in the general population. For example, black adults represent just 7% of Minnesota's population, yet they represent 36% of Minnesota's prison population. The conclusion drawn is that this represents a disparity created by the criminal justice system. It implies that black Minnesotans are treated disparately or differently within the system for no other reason but for race. It also ignores the disproportionate level of offenders that enter the criminal justice system up front, and other important factors like criminal history and seriousness of individual offenses. It's important, an important point that I hope people take away from this report lies in the understanding that using the terms disproportion and disparity, they have different meanings. Disproportion is simply a difference in numbers, while disparity describes an unfairness and an unfair difference. I wholeheartedly agree there is a disproportionate number of black Minnesotans in our criminal justice system, but I disagree these disproportions represent disparities created by an unjust system. This is an area of criminology getting dutiful attention. Professor Peter Moskos of the John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York City has recently noted that academia's use of the general population in determining disparities in our criminal justice system is disingenuous at best. Moskos says, disparity is not bias, and police activity will and should reflect racial disproportion in criminal offending. An honest denominator is needed. Well, I submit to you that honest denominator is the number of criminal offenders entering the criminal justice system, not the general population. Historically, evaluations of systemic racism in the criminal justice system started, am I creating some feedback here? Okay. Started and ended by comparing the racial makeup of prison population to the racial makeup of the public, then drawing conclusions from that. More recent and more in-depth studies have attempted to focus on who is coming into the system by using arrest data or charging data. But these data sources are imperfect and incomplete as well. Fortunately, in 2021, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension began tracking and reporting offender data by race. For the first time, we can now use and see who is entering the criminal justice system using information coming from valid sources like victims, witnesses, 911 callers, and the police themselves. This allows for a more complete and accurate data set to focus the evaluation on who is entering the system rather than using the general population. And then following that group as it travels through the system to determine whether various racial groups are in fact experiencing disparate treatment. Some limitations of my report: it deals only with a single year, 2021, and that's specifically what I just mentioned here. The data about who is offending just became available last year for 2021. But now that it is available, for the foreseeable future, we'll be able to do annual updates on a report like this, and I'm about 50% through my evaluation of the 2022 data. I hope to have a follow-up report due this summer. Other limitations include that the comparison is limited to black versus white adult offenders. I'm not dealing with juveniles, I'm not dealing with other races, but I chose that limited comparison because that is the primary comparison that is used in Minnesota when discussing the issue of disparities. Also, the report focuses only on serious crimes likely to result in prison, not traffic stops or other low-level crimes. And the data is an analysis of aggregate data. It does not follow individual cases through the system. That data is not available throughout all of the data sets, so you're forced to compare aggregate data across the board. Then one last point on methodology before we get into the data. There are countless ways to report data: percentages, rates, ratios, etc. I chose to consistently report each of the data sets using a ratio, black to white, based on the rate within each race. So I equalized the races by establishing a rate for each crime and then converted that to an easy to visualize ratio. So let's look at the data. As I've mentioned several times, it's undeniable that there are disproportionate numbers of black Minnesotans in our criminal justice system. This is not due to a systemically racist criminal justice system, but rather because the evidence shows that black Minnesotans commit a disproportionate number of crimes, especially serious crimes likely to lead to prison. The data is quite overwhelming. Let's take a look at the difference in offender rates between black and white Minnesotans. This is the only chart that deals with a per capita data so that I can establish what the offender rate is, and then I use that offender rate as the denominator in all the other comparisons. The data shows that black Minnesotans commit serious crime defined as murder, assault, robbery, weapons crimes, drug crimes, and sexual assault at a rate 10 times higher than that of white Minnesotans. The disproportions become even more pronounced with the seriousness of crime. For example, black Minnesotans commit assault at a rate 16 times higher than white Minnesotans. Black Minnesotans commit murder at a rate 50 times higher than white Minnesotans, and robbery 107 times more than white Minnesotans. Given the massive disproportion in offending, let's examine how these disproportionate groups of offenders are treated within the criminal justice system. It would stand to reason that if the criminal justice system was systemically flawed and racist, we would see these disproportions increase, thereby increasing disparities. The data, however, blows that assumption apart. What we find is that in nearly every example throughout the criminal justice system, outcomes are actually more favorable to black offenders than white offenders. So the first action after an offense occurs is the police get involved and then an arrest occurs. So let's look at arrest data of those offenders that we just saw the data sets on. Despite massive disproportions in offending by black Minnesotans, the data shows clearly that there is a disproportionate number of white Minnesotans who are arrested for serious offenses. Again, if there were disparities disfavoring black offenders, we would see the ratio of black arrests grow beyond the ratio of offending, and we see the opposite. Of those arrested for serious crimes, white offenders are arrested at consistently higher rates than black offenders. And you can see the chart here if you just go left to right. For serious crimes, white offenders are 1.6 times more likely to be arrested. For murder, it's 1.5 times more. The only outlier is weapon offenses, and that's where a weapon is used in the commission of a crime or a felon possesses a firearm. That is the only outlier where black offenders are more likely to be arrested, 1.3 times more likely. The next step in the criminal justice system is the charging decision made by prosecutors after police submit a case. The data shows again that once in the criminal justice system, the disproportions did not worsen for black offenders, they actually favored black offenders. So you can look left to right on this chart. For all serious offenders, white offenders were 1.8 times more likely to be charged with their offense. For murder, it was 1.9 times more likely. Drugs, rape, the same way. Again, the only outlier was weapon crimes, where black offenders were 1.2 times more likely to be charged with a crime. After being charged, the next step in the system, if found guilty, is sentencing. The data shows that white serious offenders were 1.4 times more likely to receive a presumptive prison commitment as directed by our sentencing guidelines, and 1.5 times more likely to receive an actual prison commitment. For those convicted of serious offenses and sentenced, the data shows that white offenders were 1.5 times more likely to receive that actual prison sentence, and it's formally called a pronounced prison sentence. The specific crime categories resulted in the following ratio of pronounced prison sentences, and you can see some variations, but they're very slight. And I apologize, I know the chart gets kind of condensed here. I'm going to rework that in my future reports and take out some of the variations. One of the variables in prison sentences comes in the form of departures from the sentences as recommended by our Sentencing Guideline Commission. There are two types of downward departures that a judge can depart from that sentencing guideline. One departs from the disposition, which means prison or probation, and this is called a mitigated dispositional departure. The other is a departure on the recommended length of sentence, and this is called a mitigated durational departure. The data shows that white serious offenders were 1.01 times, or 1% more likely to receive a mitigated dispositional departure than black serious offenders. But in regards to durational departures, black serious offenders were 1.66 times, or 66% more likely to receive a mitigated durational departure, meaning less time served than the sentencing guidelines suggested. And finally, with regard to sentencing data, I reviewed the three forms of incarceration: local confinement, like workhouses and jails, state prison, and then a category of total incarceration, which is a combination of the other two. The data shows that white serious offenders were 1.9 times, almost twice as likely to receive some form of incarceration, defined as total incarceration. This was derived from white offenders being 2.1 times more likely to receive local confinement and 1.5 times more likely to receive a state prison sentence than black offenders. So we end up back where we began, and if the criminal justice system was systemically racist, one would expect to see that the ratios of criminal offenders would worsen for black offenders as they moved through the system. This comparison shows just how false that narrative of disparate impact is. So one of the first charts I showed you was the ratio of black serious offenders to white serious offenders, 10-1. This chart shows the ratio of black prison inmates to white prison inmates. virtually identical. It virtually mirrors, it's slightly less, 9.6 to 1. In summary, black Minnesotans are overrepresented in our criminal justice system compared to the proportion that they represent in the general population. This isn't due to disparities created by the criminal justice system. Rather, it's due to the grossly disproportionate offender rates in the black community. And these disproportionately higher offender rates perpetuate the devastating victimization rates in the black community. And I'm sorry, one technical flaw, I jumped past it. This is an important slide because it's the reason I wrote the report. Ultimately, what was the value or point of the report? Well, it's right here. Data shows that black Minnesotans are 9.5 times more likely to be the victim of serious crime than white Minnesotans. When we become obsessed with racial disproportion in our criminal justice system, confusing it for unwarranted disparities, we end up reducing accountability for those offenders. Given the disproportionate number of black offenders in Minnesota, any policy efforts to reduce accountability for black offenders sadly and tragically subjects black Minnesotans to continued disparities in victimization. That, I argue, is a true disparity and true injustice. With that, I will leave you with my contact info up front. Remind you that our website is americanexperiment.org, and you can read all our material there and reach out to me directly through our website. And with that, I'll take questions. I don't know how you want to do this, with a microphone or not. Okay, so go ahead.
I just want to make a comment. When I moved here 56 years ago, the Minneapolis Tribune was trying, in their articles, trying to convince me that this was a racially community. In other words, the blacks were being mistreated here. And as I went through the city, and I used to, when I was young, I used to go to the different places. I was seeing the exact opposite. And the Minneapolis Tribune was trying to convince me that we were racially against the blacks. And I was seeing the exact opposite. And that's what I was trying to understand. Anyway, that's my comment.
Great. Yes, sir.
Could you define the difference between offender and those who are arrested?
Yes. Offenders are everyone who has been identified who has committed a crime. So even not identified by name, but just identified as either a gender or a race. Or so if you walked out into the parking lot and were robbed, and all you could tell the police was 2 men, I don't even know what race they were, but 2 men robbed me, we would have 2 offenders. Now, they haven't been arrested yet, right? But we now track that in the state. We know who the offenders are by the reports from victims, from 911 callers, and witnesses. And it's a great data set that helps us focus on who's actually committing the crime. Yes, he would be a victim. Yep.
Are we on now? Yeah.
Yep.
Did you do any research into recidivism, if I say that correctly? in the different, especially in the blacks?
Yes and no. I didn't touch on it in this report, so that the quick answer is it's not part of this report. I can't hear you. Possibly, yes.
Hi. I have a little story I want to tell you. My grandson has a little group of, they're 10 years old, and they have friends, and two of their friends are half black and white. So their skin is black. And there was a fight between the boys in school, okay? And the white boy hit the black boy, and these are friends of my grandson. So when it went home and my daughter mentioned to the mother of the black boy that this had happened, the mother, who is also black, was outraged, and she said, my son is going to be held accountable for this situation because he's black. So this is a perception that is still really strong right now. She was terrified for the fact that because he was black and he was fighting with a white boy, he would then be punished, or if they were older or adults, the black one would be held accountable for the altercation. So I'm just wondering, how are we going to change this perception? What do we do to comfort these people, this mother who is rightfully concerned about this type of a situation?
I'm a big believer in the truth and just speaking the truth, whether it's comfortable or not. I think it's not comfortable to stand up here and talk about race, believe it or not. But it's the truth, and the data, I have the truth behind me here. So if we rely on data and we don't use bias in creating the data, I think that's where we get to a better place in this world, and where we can all just speak the truth. So I hope that answers your question. And Don, I had just a minute to think here. The recidivism data is kind of built into the sentencing data, and that's an important point to make here. A lot of people say, well, the sentencing data shows clearly that black Minnesotans or black offenders, black defendants, are treated disparately. A large reason for that is what you just brought up, is criminal history and the seriousness of individual crimes. Those carry weight with the judge when the sentencing occurs. So to a certain extent, that data is already built into the sentencing data that I talked about.
I just wanted to give my 2 cents on this lady who spoke about the black woman who said, oh, now my son will be, blamed, and so on and so on. And her question was, how do we change that? And I think living here, it's akin to like turning the Mississippi around, because we have a culture, we have the media who preach a message on a regular basis saying that we are racist, the blacks are attacked again, Black Lives Matter times 50. And so I think in some ways it does a huge disservice to the black population, because they're taught that that's what happens. I mean, it's this propaganda that runs pretty deep, and the media is a huge piece of it.
David, based on your experience in law enforcement, do you have a sort of a gut feeling as to the basis for some of this data, like the fact that maybe black defendants aren't arrested or prosecuted because of witnesses either disappearing or being threatened or being very reluctant to rat on members of their community because of gang retribution and so forth?
There's certainly some of that. There's also just the fact that there's an overwhelming amount of crime in the black community, and it just stands to reason if you are a grocery store at 26th and Penn and you get robbed 20 times in a year, or you're a grocery store in Aiken, Minnesota that gets robbed once every 5 years, which do you think is going to get solved? You know, the 20 robberies at 26th and Penn, or the one that happens once every 5 years? I hope I'm making it clear that white offenders are being held accountable, because a lot of those offenses are being held in areas where the crime rate isn't overwhelming and the resources are there to deal with it. But this notion that judges and the system are looking at black and white defendants and going, well, I'm going to treat this one differently because of the color of their skin is totally false, and I hope my data proves that.
Who is it who chooses not to, so if somebody is charged with a crime, is it the prosecutors who are choosing not to charge the black people?
Well, everyone, yeah. The prosecutor is responsible for the charging decision, right?
It would seem that for some reason, and if multiple people are committing offenses.
I'm not alleging that. So just as the system isn't picking and choosing somebody based on their race to go after hard, I also am not saying that the system is picking and choosing to go weak on somebody either, in every respect.
Lynn's microphone next. And sir, would you come towards the center, please, so we can have you on camera?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank David Zimmer. I'm a retired police officer, and if it wasn't for David, you folks would not be hearing the truth. And the truth is that police officers do not get up in the morning and go, I am going to go stop someone of color, all right? I'm a retired state trooper. I retired as a state patrol lieutenant. I worked the road my last 15 years as a field lieutenant. And we ran into this every day. Now, my question that I have, and I didn't mean to take this over, my question to you, though, is that we have all of this information, but the leaders of our cities and our counties and our state are not sticking up for him. They're not telling you this. And you folks need to go out and tell people about this, because it's simply not true. Minnesota had, up until George Floyd, one of the highest groups of well-trained and well-educated police officers than any other state in the United States. We have a post board, a police officer standards and training board. When I left the state patrol, I had 2 young men working for me. They both had master's degrees. Yeah, just 2 cops in a car. Yeah, our police officers are not dumb police officers. Because of what he is talking to you about, the level of safety in Minnesota has plummeted. We are not attracting the best of the best. And now that we are not attracting the best of the best, you are no longer safe. Your times of someone coming to your house are drastically reduced. So again, I didn't mean to take this over, but thank you very much, because you've done an outstanding job. And if it wasn't for him standing here being as brave as he is, because I can only assume, well, let's get down to it. Wasn't it your building that was burned?
It was.
Okay. All right, but I mean, let's face it, folks. A guy that is telling the truth, somebody goes in and they firebomb, and I don't live too far from where their office was. Okay? So when there are people that are that desperate and they want to keep the lie going that they're going to firebomb out his place, how safe do you feel? But anyway, thank you.
Appreciate it.
I just want to say, I think one of the most important things you have said so far today is that you believe in the truth. That is so important. So like with this mother and young kids speak the truth. I would have said it has nothing to do with skin color. It has to do with behavior. And that is what the parents need to start doing. It's all about behavior. And I think if every one of us starts speaking up the truth about a situation, we'll change society very easily.
People were, when you were talking, Deb, and the answers to it and so forth, I couldn't help thinking to last month's presentation. I think it was last month's, Kendall Qualls. Yeah. Kendall Qualls was talking about, what do we do about this? And she said the mother was upset that her son was going to get held responsible because he was black, but I didn't hear anything about the father. Where was what's the family situation? And that was one of the main parts of Kendall Qualls' discussion, was the fact that the black community has been forced into decades now of single-parent families, no father in the house, which makes a big difference in how you can get rid of some of the differences in your ratios. If you can do that, that's my thought on that.
I just had, when you were talking about like North Minneapolis, the gas station hitting 20 times versus somewhere else. So if we took Hennepin County and Ramsey County out and did the thing separately, would their discrepancy be less or more? Or have you already adjusted for that?
Actually, the disproportions don't change a whole lot but they're greater numbers here in the metro. You know, the metro area is well over half of the prosecutions in the whole state. So,
I have a question. Minimum sentencing. It seems like sentences are changed all the time, and I'm not educated on when it happens and when it has happened. But have we seen a departure from minimum sentence requirements in this state?
Yes. That is one thing. If you go to our website, I've written extensively on that, especially involving gun crimes. There are mandatory minimum sentences for gun crimes. You're supposed to get a 5-year sentence if you use a firearm in the commission of a crime. 3 years and then 5 years for a second offense. I won't have the exact data or percentage, but it's about 50% of the cases aren't being sentenced with that mandatory minimum sentence. So they're departing half of the time.
Yes, in your data collection, did you find any restrictions to getting data? Did you run across any political restrictions or pushback against acquiring data?
No, I was pleasantly surprised. All of the data, the people that you go to at the various institutions. So the district court has a data collection group. The Sentencing Guideline Commission has a staff. The BCA has a staff that compiles all the offender data. They're more than happy, I think, more than happy that somebody is taking a look at the data and using it in this way to tell the truth.
Dave, another question. Are you, going forward, are you going to be separating the immigration impact from domestic citizens, I'll call it?
Specific to this report, probably not. Probably not. The immigration or illegal immigration data, I don't believe is reliable. We don't know the police don't know if you're legal or not legal. So that data is funky data, I believe. So I don't plan on incorporating it into a future report. Yes.
Thank you. I believe this is all intentional by our Democrat trifecta. This has been building for decades, and I just was, even though it was a mild winter, I was lucky enough to spend 6 weeks in Arizona, 2 weeks in Florida, this so-called winter that we just had, and it's palpable in the air. You can feel the difference in other localities. You run into people and they don't have a chip on their shoulder. I'm talking about, minority people. I would encourage everyone here, get away for a while and look at what's going on in other places. This is crazy what is going on here. And it's a death spiral. And I know this is very negative what I'm saying, but you have to recognize it for what it is, and we have to fight against it. This is nuts what's going on.
Red flag laws, in your opinion of them?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with what I'm here speaking about, but I'll comment on it. I'm not a cookie cutter when it comes to being a conservative public policy fellow on public safety things. And I personally don't have a huge problem with red flag laws. Maybe a number of you do. But as a police officer, I did see some of the weakness in being able to address very obvious public safety issues or somebody that was exhibiting very obvious threats, but it wasn't to that level where they could be arrested. I know there's a huge debate on it. I'm just not tore up that the police now have one more tool in the toolbox to address somebody that is very obviously a threat, but not to that level that they can be arrested yet.
All right, well, not that I plan on committing a crime, but looking at these numbers and the rates of arrests and the pronounced prison sentences, I'd be a little nervous to be a white person. Because, and my question to you is, why is there a disparity in the sentencing for the white person? And just to comment on another issue, I go through the urban areas quite a bit, Minneapolis, St. Paul. That seems to be where we have the largest issues of blacks with, let's say, chips on their shoulders. Because living in the suburbs, I don't see that sort of thing. But anyway, just like your comment on why the disparity is for the white arrests and the sentencing and so on.
I think as a totality, the cases probably because, like we talked about earlier, the resources are more available in outstate Minnesota for the lesser number of crimes that are occurring. So the cases are tighter. I would flip what you're saying around a bit and say, I, as a white person, am damn glad that these white offenders are being held accountable, right? We want our criminals to be held accountable. I'm just pointing out that our system is not holding black offenders accountable to that same degree.
Can you comment about Mary in her office?
Yeah. It's a topic I've probably written on more in the past year than anyone. So if you go to our website, look up a number of my articles on the issue. I know her personally. I worked with her when she was the public defender, and I was our jail commander, and we worked collaboratively together to find ways to work on the issue of mental illness in our jail, and we worked in a good, positive way there. But she is a true believer in social justice, and there was nothing worse for public safety than to have somebody that has a public defender mindset run for and gain the seat as our public prosecutor in Hennepin County. So it's a horrible outcome, and we're all paying the price.
Quick question. John, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Quick question. Your report goes black and white. What about Hispanic?
Well, I limited the comparison to black and white, so I don't have the numbers for Hispanic, but I limited it to black and white because, as I said, that is 99% of the time, that is the comparison that's referred to either in the Star Tribune or, in any conversation. So I wanted to focus this on the black versus white comparison. So I don't have the data on the Hispanic numbers. Yes, sir.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
I have a question. I want to go off a little bit, but you mentioned our county attorney. Her friend is running for Hennepin County Commissioner. I think her name's Westmoreland. Do you have an opinion on her? How bad she would be if she won? And what we can do to stop it?
I don't. I don't know her. Obviously, that potential for nepotism would be a problem, but I don't know her. I'd rather focus the questions and my answers to the report and what I discussed today.
The information you give us this morning is very good, very interesting. But where's it go? Do you put it to the leaders? Do you put it to the newspaper? Yep. Where do you put it? And is any of your information being repressed?
I wouldn't say it's being repressed, it's being ignored by those who you would hope would look at it and objectively look at it and use it. So our report, we physically mailed a copy to every judge in the state. We physically mailed a copy to every sheriff, police chief, every legislator in the state. So hundreds of copies of this physically got in the hands of the people that need to see it. I've not had one call from a progressive person saying, this is inaccurate. This is, I dispute this fact. I have not had one call disputing any of the data in here, but have you ever heard that this report came out? Did the Star Tribune write it? The Star Tribune got a copy of this. Channel 11, Channel 9, everybody got a copy of this. We actually, the day it got published, we offered a 2-hour session where I was available to any media member. They had it a day in advance. They could come and ask me any question they wanted about the data, challenge me on it in any way. Not one media member took advantage of that because they don't want to tell this story. So I'm being ignored, or the data is being ignored. Alpha did, and they published it. Yeah. So I stand corrected. Alpha News, obviously, yes, they're a partner organization. So.
Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing.
Thank you.
And I do have a question. Besides the organizations you mentioned, how about the black community? Has the black leadership responded at all?
So there's a group called the Minnesota, and I can't say they're the black community, but there's a group that does kind of the opposite of what I do. They champion progressive public safety policies. The executive director of that group reached out to me as soon as my report was published, and we've I got to say, I respect him. We've had coffee and lunch a couple of times, and we obviously see things completely different. But we have discussed it, and I will say that the only critique he has is, quote unquote, Dave, how is this going to help? That was his concern. How is it going to help? And my response was, it's the truth. So how can the truth not help? Right?
Last question.
Mr. Zimmer, if you sent this report to the city police chiefs, are you saying every city in the state of Minnesota received it? Maybe even if we could just go to the circle, Bloomington, Richfield, Woodbury, Oakdale, right around the outer ring there. Have you received, first of all, did they receive it, number one? And then number two, if they did you receive any feedback from any of the police chiefs in those communities? And
anecdotal feedback, a few emails and some phone calls or conversations when I meet with people, but nothing formal. Many police chiefs, unfortunately, have to respond to and answer to progressive mayors and city council people, so they kind of mind their P's and Q's.
I will say that I serve currently on Woodbury City Council, and I have not seen this, and so I do find it interesting, and I'll probably be bringing it up at our meeting if I get an opportunity, which I seem to be silenced a lot.
So in terms of all the police chiefs, I think what we did is sent it to the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association and ask in digital form and ask them to disseminate, because I didn't have the email contacts for every police chief in the state. But we did it for every judge, every legislator, and every sheriff. So.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
A few final announcements and then our door prize drawing. Our next meeting will be May 14th. Our featured speaker will be Reverend Kenneth Beal. He's the senior chaplain at the historic Fort Snelling Chapel on the topic, Our Lives, Our Fortunes, Our Sacred Honor, which a broad topic. I'll be interested to see what he speaks on. Our first speakers next month will be Kelly Janner Byrne, who established the virtual chapter of the Minnesota Republican Women's Federation, and she is now the president of that organization. We'll also hear from U.S. Senate candidate Joe Frazier, who is seeking the state endorsement later that week at the state convention. And Don Parker from Minnesota Citizens Concerned for Life will brief us on the DFL legislative actions to minimize the rights of people of faith in Minnesota. So that's what's coming up May 14th. Remember to tell a friend or neighbor about Republican Seniors of Minnesota. We printed the new brochures. They have the QR code at the back, so somebody with a phone can easily get to our website. We also have the little wallet cards that you can take with you. If you are going to a Senate district or a congressional district convention, I encourage you to take some of our literature. There are extra copies on the tables. There are also extra copies at the back of the room. More information about the things I announced earlier, like signing up to volunteer with the MNGOP, is up here at the front. Extra copies of the literature are up here at the front. Feel free to come and talk to me about topics that you would like to see. Remember that this was video recorded. It was also live streamed. There was a lot of information presented, particularly the statistical information. If you want to go back and listen again, to watch the slideshow again, you can see the video. It should be up, typically it's up within a week. So go from our website and look at past meeting videos and you should be able to see that information. Are there any, new topic, are there any guests or first-time visitors who would like to tell us their name and where they're from? Do we have a, wait a second, do we have a microphone still? Yes.
Which is St. Louis Park. I hope to get the nomination on Sunday, but I'm running because of everything that Dave talked about.
So John Nagel from St. Louis Park, thank you. Other guests or first-time visitors? All right. Are there any quick announcements that need to be made? I think that Ron, are you here from Bloomington? You had wanted to speak? Okay. Very quick, Ron.
Yeah. Bloomington has ranked choice voting. We're trying to get rid of it. I have a petition that I need Bloomington voters, residents, to sign in order to get it on the ballot for November. I'm right in the middle on the left side here. Last time a few people came over and signed. There were more people from Bloomington than came. So please run over, sign it quick before you run out of the building. Thank you.
Are there other brief announcements? I thought I had one other person say they wanted to make a quick announcement. Dale. Yes, you do.
I'm here today to help out a lady who's running for the 4th District, CD4, that's St. Paul, and all the way to the St. Croix. She's running against Betty McCollum, who's been in there for 20 years. And that seat has been held by Democrats for like 40 to 50 years. I've got brochures about her. Her name is Mei Lor Zhang. She ran last time and did better against Betty than anybody else ever had. She needs money, because that's the way this works. If you know anybody that lives in CD4, or if you want to help us get this state to turn red, pick up a brochure from me, find me. It's got her information on there. Her opponent, Betty McCollum, already has $790,000 in the bank. And so look me up and I'll give you the information on her. May is a immigrant from a refugee camp in Southeast Asia. She had 4 kids. She's a master's degree. She was a teacher, and 2 of her kids were males, and they volunteered in the U.S. Army. This is an outstanding person, and she needs our financial support and any support you can give her. And quickly last, we have some people here who are running in CD3, and the person that they're running against, Kelly Morrison, has already raised $420,000. That was as of the end of last year. So whoever you want in CD3, get behind them and get some money in their hands.
Thank you, Dale. We will now do our prize drawing, and I'm going to have Barbara here draw for the door prize. Get out your tickets, folks. Last 4 digits, 0120. Anybody here who has 120 as their last digits? Oh, no. You know the phrase about close only counts. Oh, do we have 120? Okay. Then we still need a second one drawn. And she just tossed that winning number back in there. Okay. 0177, are you here? Okay. Would you please come up and collect your door prizes? Thank you all. We'll see you May 14th. We have the room until noon. Continue your conversations.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Beautiful for pilgrim feet whose stern impassioned stress a thoroughfare for freedom be across the wilderness.
Republican Seniors of Minnesota. For more information, please visit republicanseniorsmn.com. While visiting our website, you can click on the video tab to watch videos of past meetings. Also, look for other tabs that bring you to our live player and other special video programs. Or on YouTube, search for Republican Seniors of Minnesota.